I took my rooster to school and everyone laughed at me, but nobody knew what he was really worth. When I made an announcement in the courtyard, the classmates who mocked me were left open-mouthed. Subscribe now to the channel and find out how a simple country boy turned the tables with a rooster that nobody expected. The rising sun was already peeking over the green hills of Golden Ridge, a small town in rural Georgia, when Jack got up to help his father with the morning chores. At 14, he already knew every corner of the small farm where they raised chickens and sold eggs. While the other boys at school received generous allowances and showed off expensive phones, Jack wore simple clothes, handed down from older cousins, and carried a worn notebook inside a patched-up backpack. "Are you just going to stand there, boy?" Samuel's hoarse voice cut through the fresh morning air. "The chickens don't feed themselves." Jack adjusted his faded cap and ran to the chicken coop. It was Monday, a school day, but the farm obligations came first. His father, a simple man who had barely completed elementary school, insisted that his son study, but never excused him from daily work. As he opened the small door to the chicken coop, his eyes fell upon Sultan, the rooster with vibrant plumage that his father had received from a friend. The animal, imposing and fierce, was the pride of their small farm. Jack admired the proud bearing of the rooster, which seemed intimidated by nothing and no one. "This bird is worth gold, my son," Samuel would often say. "He's champion lineage. If we treat him right, he could bring us some money in competitions." That morning, while spreading corn for the chickens, Jack thought about school, the laughter of his classmates, the nicknames that followed him through the hallways. Hick, mud feet, chicken smell. The taunts echoed in his mind, making his stomach churn. The school bus passed at 7 o'clock sharp along the dirt road that cut through the property. Jack was always the first to get on and sat in the back, trying to make himself invisible. That day, however, something different happened during the journey. "Hey guys, did you see the news?" shouted Mark, son of the owner of the town's largest supermarket, waving his latest model cell phone. "There's going to be a rooster championship at the end of the month. The prize is $3,000. The information shot through the bus like lightning. Rooster competitions were popular in the region, traditional events where breeders exhibited their best animals. These weren't violent cockfights, but competitions of beauty, stature, and crowing. "My dad is going to enter his rooster," continued Mark smugly. "He bought it from a famous breeder from Clear Mountain. Nobody stands a chance against him." Jack shrank even further into his seat. He knew that Sultan was special. His father always said so, but they had never participated in competitions. Money was tight, and the entry fees were too high for their tight budget. Arriving at Montrose County High School, Jack entered quickly, head down, avoiding the gazes. In the classroom, he took his usual place in the last row near the window. Ms. Cecilia, who taught English, began the class by talking about a special project. "Class, this month we'll have the cultural fair. Each student should present something relevant from local culture. It can be crafts, cuisine, music, traditions." The class buzzed with ideas. Bobby, the mayor's son, said he would talk about the history of the town's founding. Lisa, whose family owned the largest farm in the region, promised to bring artisanal cheeses produced on her property. Meanwhile, Jack remained silent, not knowing what he could offer. "And you, Jack?" asked Ms. Cecilia, noticing his silence. "What do you plan to present?" All heads turned. Some giggles began to emerge. "Going to bring eggs?" taunted Paul, the leader of the group that picked on him the most. "Or maybe give a demonstration of how to clean chicken poop." The room erupted in laughter. Jack felt his face burn, while the teacher called for silence, visibly embarrassed by the situation. "I don't know yet, Ms. Cecilia," he answered in a low voice. Returning home, Jack couldn't stop thinking about the fair and the taunts. While helping his father close up the chicken coop, he observed Sultan again, walking majestically among the hens. An idea began to form in his mind. "Dad, do you think Sultan could win a rooster championship?" Samuel looked at his son, surprised by the sudden question. "Sultan comes from champion lineage, son. His great-uncle, Uncle Jimmy, told me that his father won 3 championships in Diamond Springs. Why are you asking?" Jack hesitated before answering. His father worked hard to support the family since his mother had fallen ill and needed to stay in the city for treatment. The little money they earned barely covered essential expenses and medications. There's a championship at the end of the month and the prize is good. Samuel's tired eyes sparkled for a moment. $3,000 would be enough to buy that medicine the doctor prescribed for your mother, he murmured, more to himself than to his son. But the entry fee must be expensive. $200, confirmed Jack, and we'd still need money for transportation. Silence hung between them. $200 equaled almost 2 weeks of egg sales. It was a lot of money to risk. I'll think about it, said Samuel finally. Now go do your homework. We'll talk more tomorrow. That night, lying in his simple bed, Jack had an idea. If he couldn't enter Sultan in the championship, he could at least take him to the cultural fair. He would show everyone that, despite his simple life, he had something valuable, something that could impress even the sons of rich farmers. Determined, he fell asleep with a plan in mind. The next day he would surprise everyone at school. He would bring Sultan and tell the story of breeding pedigree roosters, a tradition that went back generations in his family. For the first time, he felt that perhaps he could earn the respect of his classmates. What Jack didn't imagine was that this simple gesture would completely change his life and reveal secrets that even he didn't know about his own family. The day dawned cloudy when Jack woke up even before the first crow of the rooster. His heart was racing with anticipation of what he was about to do. Without waking his father, he went to the chicken coop and carefully took Sultan. The rooster, with gleaming reddish-gold plumage and a proud comb, offered no resistance, recognizing the boy's touch. "Today you're going to see the town, buddy," whispered Jack, settling the animal in a woven bamboo cage his grandfather had made years ago. When Samuel appeared for breakfast, he already found his son ready to leave, with the cage covered by a cloth. "What's this idea, boy?" he asked, scratching his head in confusion. "I'm taking Sultan to the cultural fair, Dad. The teacher asked us to show something from our culture and tradition. I'm going to talk about breeding pedigree roosters." Samuel hesitated for a moment, but eventually nodded. "Be careful with him. Sultan is worth more than a lot of farmers around here think." On the school bus, the commotion was immediate. All the students crowded around to see what was in the cage. When Jack removed the cloth, revealing the imposing Sultan, exclamations of surprise echoed through the vehicle. "Wow, what a beautiful rooster!" exclaimed Mary, one of the few people who treated Jack with kindness. "Beautiful? Looks like a common rooster to me," scoffed Paul, trying to hide his admiration. "My dad has dozens better than that on the farm." Jack didn't respond to the taunts. For the first time, he noticed looks of genuine curiosity directed at him, and this lit a flame of confidence that he rarely felt. Arriving at school, the news of the rooster spread like wildfire. Even the principal, Ms. Abigail, came to check out the animal that was causing such a stir. "It's for the cultural fair, Ms. Abigail," explained Jack shyly. "I'm going to talk about the tradition of rooster breeding in my family." "Interesting, Jack, but keep him in the cage during classes, please." During the break, Jack took Sultan to the courtyard and a crowd of students formed around him. Many asked questions about the rooster, others wanted to touch him, and some even took pictures with their cell phones. "Is it true that this type of rooster is worth a lot of money?" asked Lisa, genuinely interested. Before Jack could answer, Paul butted in with his usual mocking tone. "That one? I doubt it's worth more than $50. It's just a common country rooster." Actually, Jack took a deep breath, finding courage he didn't know he possessed. "Sultan is descended from a champion lineage. His father won 3 championships in Diamond Springs. My dad refused $5,000 for him last month." The eyes of his classmates widened at this information. Paul, visibly bothered by the attention Jack was receiving, crossed his arms. "If he's so good, why don't you enter him in the championship that's coming up? Or are you afraid of losing?" The challenge hung in the air. Jack felt his stomach sink. He knew he didn't have money for the entry fee, but admitting this would mean going back to square one. "Maybe he will participate," he answered vaguely, stroking Sultan's feathers. During physical education class, while the others played soccer, Jack stayed to the side, taking care of his rooster. That's when Coach Robert, A middle-aged man who had always shown empathy for the shyer students approached. "Beautiful animal you have there, Jack," he commented, observing Sultan with knowing eyes. "Seems to be of good lineage." "You know about roosters, coach?" "My father raised them. I recognize a good specimen when I see one." The coach crouched down to get a better look at the animal. "This one has the bearing of a champion. Are you going to participate in the upcoming championship?" Jack bit his lip, hesitant. "I'd like to, but the entry fee costs $200. It's a lot of money for us." Coach Robert stayed silent for a few moments, thoughtful. "You know, Jack, I could help. I have some contacts in the Breeders' Association. Maybe I can get a discount on the entry fee for you." The boy's eyes shone. "With hope. You would do that?" "Of course, and more, I could give you some preparation tips. As I said, I grew up watching my father train roosters for competitions." The news that Jack would enter Sultan in the championship spread quickly through the school. Suddenly, the shy boy from the back of the classroom became the center of attention. Classmates who had never spoken to him now surrounded him, wanting to know more about the rooster and the championship. Paul, however, was far from impressed. During lunch, he approached Jack with his usual group of followers. "So, mud feet. I heard you're going to participate in the championship. I hope you're prepared to lose. My dad entered our rooster, Emperor. He cost more than $10,000 and comes from Chicago." "Money doesn't make a champion," replied Jack, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. "We'll see." Paul smiled with disdain. "By the way, how about a bet? If your country rooster beats mine, I'll admit in front of the whole school that I was wrong about you. But if you lose, you'll have to clean the chicken coop at our farm for a month." The Tiu. Proposal was humiliating, but refusing would mean showing weakness. All eyes were on him. "Deal," agreed Jack, extending his hand, which Paul shook with excessive force. Upon returning home, Jack was divided between excitement and dread. How would he tell his father about the championship and the bet? To his surprise, Samuel received the news with a tired smile. "Coach Robert called me this afternoon. He talked about helping with the registration." His father paused, looking deeply into his son's eyes. "Are you sure you want to do this, son? These competitions are taken very seriously by powerful people in the region." "I am, Dad. It's not just for the prize money. It's to show that we, though simple, have value." Samuel hugged his son tightly, something rare for the man of few words and fewer displays of affection. "Your grandfather would be proud. He was a great breeder, you know. Before losing everything in the flood of '92, you never told me much about Grandpa." "There are many things you don't know about our family, Jack. Perhaps it's time you learned some of them." In the weeks that followed, Jack divided his time between school, where he now received looks of curiosity and even respect, and training with Sultan, guided by Coach Robert. The man revealed himself to be deeply knowledgeable in the art of preparing roosters for exhibitions, teaching techniques of feeding, cleaning, and presentation that would make Sultan shine even more. As the day of the championship approached, the tension grew. Paul didn't miss an opportunity to taunt, promising public humiliation when his rooster won. But Jack, once so insecure, found more and more strength in the confidence that Coach Robert and his father placed in him. What he didn't know was that, behind the scenes, an old family story was about to resurface, surprisingly connecting his humble Sultan to the most prestigious lineages of competition roosters in the country, a story that his father guarded with as much zeal as pain, and that the championship would inevitably bring to the surface, forever changing the course of their lives. The morning of the big championship arrived with a clear sky and a sun that promised heat. On the small Smith farm, Jack awoke before dawn, his stomach knotted with anxiety. Sultan seemed to sense the importance of the day, displaying his brightest plumage and emitting vigorous crows that echoed across the property. Samuel, normally reserved and practical, surprised his son by appearing wearing his only good shirt, kept for special occasions. "Today is a day that deserves respect," he explained, adjusting the uncomfortable collar. Then, from an old chest that remained locked in the corner of the room, he took out something wrapped in a faded cloth. "I want you to wear this. Jack unwrapped the fabric, revealing a brown felt hat worn by time but still elegant in its rustic way. It was your grandfather's. He wore it in all the championships he participated in. The boy held the hat with reverence, carefully placing it on his head. He felt a strange pride as he adjusted it, as if an unknown part of his heritage was finally fitting into place. Coach Robert arrived promptly at 8 o'clock, driving his old car. On the dirt road leading to town, while Jack held Sultan's cage in the back seat, the coach initiated a conversation that would change everything. "Did your father tell you anything about your grandfather, Jack?" "Just that he was a rooster breeder and lost everything in a flood." Robert exchanged a significant look with Samuel, who nodded subtly. "Your grandfather Anthony Smith wasn't a simple breeder," began the coach. "He was known as Tony King of Roosters. In the 80s and early 90s, his animals dominated regional championships. The lineage he developed, the Royal Crown, was sought after by breeders from all over the country." Jack's eyes widened, unable to associate this grandiose story with the grandfather he had barely known. If he was so successful, why do we live with so little? Samuel sighed deeply before answering. "The flood of '92 took almost everything. The best breeding stock, the trophies, the records. But what really destroyed your grandfather was betrayal." His voice hardened. Clayton Morrison, his partner and childhood friend, had secretly sold the rights to the Royal Crown lineage to a breeder from Chicago, forging your grandfather's signature. When the truth came out, it was too late. The money had disappeared with Clayton, and your grandfather lost in court the rights to the very lineage he created. Clayton Morrison? Jack felt a chill. "That's Paul's father?" The silence in the car confirmed his suspicion. Finally, the pieces were starting to fit together. Paul's contempt, the constant taunts, everything seemed part of a larger and older story than himself. "And Sultan?" he asked, looking at the cage where the rooster remained serene. "Sultan is the last pure descendant of the Royal Crown lineage," revealed his father. "Your great-uncle, your mother's brother, secretly kept one of the last fertilized eggs. For generations we've preserved this lineage, waiting for the right moment to reclaim what is rightfully ours." "And why now?" "Because we finally got the proof," intervened Coach Robert, taking a yellowed envelope from the inner pocket of his jacket. "Documents that your grandfather saved and that survived the flood. I was just a boy at the time, son of your grandfather's best friend. But I remember everything. I spent years helping your father gather this evidence." "And my mother? Does she know all this?" "Her treatment is expensive, son. If we can prove the fraud, the compensation can pay for a specialist in Atlanta." The Municipal Pavilion of Golden Ridge had been transformed for the event. Colorful banners, stands of feed and equipment vendors, and dozens of cages with roosters of all colors occupied the space. The air smelled of special feed and clean sawdust. The competition was divided into categories, and Sultan was entered in the most prestigious, traditional American breeds. Breeders from all over the state of Georgia, and even neighboring states, had brought their best specimens, animals worth small fortunes. Upon arriving, they were greeted with curious looks and some whispers. Clearly, the presence of the Smith family at a championship after so many years caused a certain stir among the older breeders. "Look who's risen from the ashes," commented a burly man loudly. "I thought the Smiths had given up on the business." "We never gave up, Mr. George," replied Samuel with dignity. "We just waited for the right moment." "The right moment, huh?" The man gave a mocking laugh. "Or you didn't even have money for the entry fee?" Jack felt his face burn with shame and anger, but his father maintained his composure. "Judge our rooster, not our financial situation." Sultan's registration was a tense process. The official examined the animal with almost obsessive thoroughness, checking each characteristic against a list of detailed criteria. "Interesting," he murmured. "He reminds me a lot of the old Royal Crown lineage. Same comb structure, same coloration in the secondary feathers. The Royal Crown lineage has been registered as the exclusive property of Morrison Farms for more than 30 years, said the official, looking suspiciously at Samuel. "We are aware of the current legal Situation, intervened Coach Robert, but we have documents that may alter that understanding. After a few more questions, Sultan received his competition number, 23, and was placed in the preparation area where other breeders meticulously cared for their animals. "It's a lot of pressure," commented a voice beside him. It was Mary, the classmate who had always treated him with kindness. "I came to watch. I heard your rooster is entered." "Mary, what are you doing here?" "My uncle is one of the judges. I'm rooting for you." It wasn't long before Paul and his father, Clayton Morrison, appeared. Clayton, a man in his 50s, with graying hair and an imposing stature, wearing an expensive suit, stopped in his tracks when he saw Samuel. "Samuel Smith, it's been a long time. Didn't know you still raised roosters." "Some family traditions deserve to be preserved, Clayton," replied Samuel, with a coldness that Jack had never seen in his father. "Although some families know how to preserve them better than others, isn't that right?" Paul, beside his father, shot a disdainful look at Jack and Sultan. "Is that the rooster that's going to compete with Emperor? He looks sick." "Don't judge a book by its cover, Paul," replied Jack with unexpected firmness. "Clayton," observed Sultan more carefully, and for a moment his smile faltered. "What lineage does he come from, Samuel? Why don't you watch the presentation to find out?" The competition began with the smaller categories. Hours passed as judges evaluated roosters of various breeds and sizes. The audience politely applauded each presentation. Paul's rooster, Emperor, was truly impressive. Large, with black plumage with greenish reflections, trained to display itself with majesty. When Paul entered the arena, a retinue of assistants accompanied him carrying previous trophies. Emperor, presented by Paul Morrison, represents the 8th generation of the exclusive Royal Crown lineage, developed and perfected by the Morrison family, announced the narrator, provoking enthusiastic applause. Jack noticed his father clench his fists so tightly that his knuckles whitened. Finally, after all the other competitors, it was Sultan's turn. Upon hearing number 23 Sultan, presented by Jack Smith, the boy felt his legs tremble. With his grandfather's hat firmly on his head, he walked to the center of the arena. The silence that followed was different from any other during the competition. The judges leaned forward in their chairs. The president of the association, Arnold Porter, a gentleman with white hair, adjusted his glasses as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Sultan, as if understanding the importance of the moment, displayed himself with a natural pride. His reddish-gold plumage shone under the lights, and when he spread his wings, he revealed a pattern of colors that made several old breeders murmur among themselves. His crow, powerful and melodious, echoed through the pavilion. "My God!" exclaimed one of the judges, an elderly gentleman with a white beard. "It's a pure Royal Crown." A buzz ran through the audience. Clayton Morrison, in the front row, visibly paled. The president of the association rose and, breaking all protocols, approached to examine Sultan more closely. "Young man," he said to Jack with a voice filled with emotion, "do you know what you have here?" "The last pure descendant of the Royal Crown lineage," answered Jack. "A lineage we believed lost more than 30 years ago," added the president, turning to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing a historic event for national breeding." Clayton Morrison rose abruptly. "This is absurd. The Royal Crown lineage has been the exclusive property of my family for decades." The president of the association looked at him severely. "Mr. Morrison, as president of this association for 20 years, I can recognize a genuine Royal Crown when I see one, and this is purer than any specimen your farm has produced in the last decade." The applause was deafening. Samuel watched with contained tears as his son and the rooster received the recognition that for so many years had been denied to them. The president, after conferring with the other judges, took the microphone again. "In my 40 years as a judge, I have never witnessed anything like this. By unanimous decision, we award the maximum score to number 23, Sultan." He made a dramatic pause. "And what's more, I invite everyone to a special meeting after the awards ceremony. We have important documents about the true history of the Royal Crown lineage that need to be presented." Clayton Morrison advanced toward the arena. "This is a farce, a conspiracy. Sue for telling the truth, Clayton. Samuel's voice cut through the air. "Or are you afraid of what the original documents might reveal?" "What documents? Everything was destroyed in the flood." "Not everything." Coach Robert stepped forward holding the yellowed envelope. "Your mistake was believing that Anthony Smith trusted you blindly. He kept copies of everything, including the power of attorney that you forged." The crowd watched in absolute silence. Paul seemed lost. "Dad, what are they talking about?" Clayton pulled his son by the arm. "Let's go, Paul." "But Dad, Emperor can still win." "It's over, Paul. It's over." As the Morrisons withdrew, Jack looked at his father, who nodded with pride. "We did it, son. Your grandfather will finally have justice." The complete story came to light in the meeting that followed. Coach Robert presented the documents kept for so many years, original contracts, letters, genetic records, that proved Clayton Morrison's fraud. The president of the association declared that he would initiate a formal process to restore the rights of the Smith family over the royal crown lineage. "It's not just a matter of justice for Anthony Smith," he explained. "It's about the integrity of national breeding. The royal crown lineage is part of the cultural heritage of our region." For Jack, the events of that day seemed like a dream. He stroked Sultan, who rested peacefully in his cage, apparently indifferent to the historic role he had just played. On the way back home, carrying the trophy and the certificate that declared Sultan as the best specimen in the category, his father placed his hand on his shoulder and said, "You did today what I never had the courage to do, son. You faced the past with your head held high. Your grandfather would be prouder of you than of this trophy." The next day, arriving at school, with the trophy, Jack was no longer the shy boy from the back of the classroom. He walked with the quiet confidence that comes not from external recognition, but from the certainty of knowing and honoring one's own roots. His classmates surrounded him, amazed by the story that now circulated throughout the town. Paul was not present. Rumor had it that his father had decided to send him to a boarding school in Atlanta. "Is it true that you're going to receive a millionaire compensation?" asked Bobby, the mayor's son, who had never before directed a word to Jack. "I don't know about millions," replied Jack with a discreet smile, "but enough to bring my mother back home, with the medical care she needs." 3 months later, life had changed for the Smith family. With the preliminary compensation granted by the court, they were able to start specialized treatment for Lucy, Jack's mother, who could finally return to the farm. The chicken coop was renovated to house Sultan's offspring, whose lineage was now officially recognized as the original royal crown. Coach Robert, now Samuel's partner, coordinated an educational project that took students from the school to learn about the tradition of breeding pedigree roosters. Jack showed a natural talent for identifying the best characteristics in chicks. On a sunny afternoon, while Jack was helping his father in the chicken coop, he noticed Paul approaching by the dirt road, alone. "I came to apologize," he said, straightforwardly, "for the way I treated you all these years. And also, I wanted to say that I didn't know about what my father did to your family." Jack observed his former classmate. There was no more arrogance in his posture, only sincere embarrassment. "How are things?" asked Jack, offering water. "My father is facing legal problems. We lost the bigger farm." Paul shrugged. "But maybe it's good, you know. Learning to live without thinking we're better than everyone else." After a brief conversation, Paul said goodbye, promising to keep in touch. "You didn't have to be kind to him," commented Samuel. "Children shouldn't pay for the mistakes of their parents," replied Jack. "Besides, holding grudges would be like letting the past still have power over us." His father looked at him with pride. "When did you get so wise, my son?" Jack smiled, adjusting his grandfather's hat. "Maybe on the day I decided to take a rooster to school." On the horizon, the sun was beginning to set, painting the green fields that surrounded the small farm that was finally beginning to prosper, again in gold. Sultan, majestically perched on a nearby fence, let out a vigorous crow that echoed across the property, no longer just the sound of a rooster, but the symbol of a recovered heritage and a renewed future. Dear listeners, we hope that Jack and Sultan's journey has touched your hearts. To continue navigating equally moving American stories about overcoming and family traditions, we've prepared a special playlist with country narratives that celebrate our roots. Find it here by clicking on the left. If this story about how a simple rooster can restore a family's pride has moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave your like on the video. Each day we bring new stories that explore the cultural richness of our America, from the northeastern farmlands to the western plains. Share in the comments which moment of Jack's story touched your heart the most. Was it when he faced bullying, when he discovered his family's past, or when he finally got justice? We are eager to read your impressions and continue this conversation about our own stories of overcoming. Until the next moving tale.